This evening, I have the honor of introducing to you Alicia Diner. She is from Mickey Bright Community Learning Center. Alicia has been a student at Mickey Bright since the 2nd grade and is currently in the 5th grade. During her years at Mickey Bright, she has consistently excelled in academics and in showing positive character. She has been an honor and merit roll student every grading period, every school year, and is a leader in her class. Alicia is well liked by adults and students that she encounters. I thought she was pretty awesome when I met her. This is due in part to her strong leadership qualities. She is honest, kind, and compassionate toward other students, which has earned her the respect and friendship of her peers. The principal and staff at Mickey Bright are proud to have Alicia represent their school as she leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Welcome, Alicia.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you introduce the people you brought with you today?
Over in the red shirt is my grandma, and next to her is my mom and my little cousin Tay, and my principal is Lucas.
Very nice. Thank you so much for coming, Alicia. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Bright. We talked about how it's sunny outside for once, for the first time in months. Oh, I promised her I would give her her bio, too. Thank you so much. You're welcome. It was hard for the board to come in today, too. So nice. All right, now is the time for our community and school reflections. Anybody have anything to share? Coming out of our winter doldrums and lots of good things are going on. Anything? All right.
Just want to mention the spring conference we went to last week. A number of us did, and just the talent of the students there. Wasn't that amazing? I mean, I felt like I went to a real concert.
Mm-hmm.
What was the school?
Glen Oak. That's where we were.
Really good.
It was really, really good.
It was their vocal jazz group. It was really good.
Very good.
We were. I had the pleasure of getting to see Ghost at Firestone High School this weekend. And I'm not sure if anybody got to see that. It was really quite an amazing performance. Technically a crazy show to do. And they were piloting that again for the first time. They're the first high school to get a chance to do that. So now they'll give their notes back to the producers and let them know what it's like to produce that show at the high school level. So it was really interesting to get to see. Anything else? Yes, Tim.
I had the opportunity to go to a kickoff at the food bank. It was a couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago anyways. It was a kickoff of the city versus the county gathering food. It's just a challenge they have every year for the food bank. And I just want to thank the food bank and all they do for all the little food kitchens around, especially when we're closed and the kids don't get their meals. That we provide the 2 squares a day for a lot of the kids in the Akron Public School District. So I just wanted to thank the food bank and thank the city and the county for the challenge that they do every year to collect for the food bank.
Believe it or not, the state of the schools fell in the last 2 weeks. It's hard to believe, or since our last meeting. And also the mayor's luncheon for the United Negro College Fund. And I know a lot of board members were in attendance for that as well. So thank you for all of you for attending all of those as well. Anything else?
I'd just like to add to what you said, Lisa, that a lot of people don't realize what a great job our administration is doing, especially our superintendent in running the schools. we're good fiscally, and we're doing a lot of good things that are helping our students excel. We're addressing the challenges like charter schools, and I just came on board obviously in 2014, but I remember before I got involved, you guys weathered some very difficult times, and it's nice to be doing well and have a good balanced budget with our new treasurer. And I don't know, it's just really nice to be a part of that, as well as attend the UNICEF lunch where the young lady that's related to Maxine Bates, who got up there and spoke her heart and all in front of all those people, and obviously was nervous, but did a nice job. So I really enjoyed attending that luncheon as well.
Yeah, I know we talked already, but just echo the sentiments around the work that we do at the schools. And, it's always a delight. I don't say it because he's our superintendent, but he does such a wonderful job of, I love hearing the ahs, kind of people pausing out loud, not realizing the breadth of opportunities that exist in the Akron Public Schools. And so to hear that loud pause is always good to experience. And I too tip my hat sometimes, not as often as I should, publicly, but certainly I do privately, for the work not only that the superintendent does, but his entire leadership staff, from every director to the assistant superintendent. And I know the support that they are to us as a board. I can't say that there's ever been a time where that we needed something, that we couldn't get it and get it expeditiously and not have to send it back 3 or 4, it's right the first time. So just, something we take for granted. I know I've probably been guilty of that, but very appreciative to be a part of this well-oiled machine.
Yes, Reverend.
And I just want to highlight, in the paper this past week was a nice article about EMS, where a group of clergy persons, staff, gathered. Several of our APS principals and staff made presentation. And the idea is to start early in teaching our children how to read, how to count, have basic foundations before they get into school. And it's to train particularly faith-based communities where we have a lot of our students come from, to be able to take advantage of that. And one was the Dolly Parton free books that students can have from birth to 5 years of age. And it's just by signing up at United Way. And they can get these books, and these books will be sent to their homes. So again, leadership coming from our superintendent and coming from Summit County, from Tamla Lee, and then the Summit County
Educational Initiative?
Statistical, SEI, to help with a lot of, our statistical data that we can use to support what we're doing. So I think that is a groundbreaking effort for our community, and we need to put that out to let people know to take advantage of these opportunities so that it can help our students. And then on the other, during this week, there's been some positive and negative. A report of one positive charter school, but then we see statistics that most of our charter schools nationwide, and especially Ohio, have not been functioning well. So I don't want us to be misled by the one shining star, and sometimes that encourages people, well, maybe we'll move in that direction, for them to continue to investigate all of those charter schools and, stack them up against our schools. I think we have some, wonderful schools that can provide a proper education for our children. So I think when we see those things, we need to look at them with a critical eye, so that we're making sure that our populace doesn't just go by a positive comment that's made and say, well, maybe we'll jump aboard.
on that bandwagon, which that might not be the correct way to go.
I wanted to point out also, Mr. Williamson shared this with me today. Our own Tracy Buckner is on the cover of today's Akron Life and Leisure. And so we're very proud of that. I want to pass it around with the board members. And a lovely picture it is too. All right, we don't have any requests to address the board this evening. We do have a presentation from Mr. Rambler and on school climate.
I'm actually just going to turn it on and introduce Andrew Zaccardi. And he will
Easy way out.
move forward to present. I give you Andrew Zaccardi and the school climate update from our previous update.
All right, good evening. I am back to give you a second update on school climate in the district and what we've been doing and where we're going with this. Our focus areas for school climate right now, we are looking at focusing on focus area 2 and 3, learning conditions and collaboration engagement. And the 3 pillars or silos that we're going to focus on tonight, where most of our work has been focused to this point. The first one are the student services team members. Those are the individuals that are working in the elementary schools. There are 7 buildings that have them, and the program framework that we've put around for them to work on improving the school climate within those buildings. The School Climate Committee, which is working toward the completion of a school climate audit, where a team of unbiased people will go into a building and take a look at some of those things that you can see, feel, hear, smell, taste, touch, put your senses on, and say, we can do a quick fix to improve this. So when someone else comes in, their perception of the climate when they walk in that building will be changed. And the last piece is the mentoring piece, which we've been working on, not only district, but city and county-wide as well. The first piece, the student services team members. These are the 7 buildings that the individuals are located in. Since the last presentation, we've added Portage Path. That person started in mid-February. I haven't included Portage Path's data on all of my data-driven things yet, just because until she gets underfoot and gets things going programmatically. But with the, there's also a parent liaison in that building, and they're working together very closely, and so that made the transition much smoother, and it allowed the parent liaison to sort of move her role more into the dealing with parents and away from some of the climate things where you kind of fingerlings go out, and she got to do some other things, so this was able to make their jobs work a little more efficiently. From the last data that we look at, each time we do it every 30 days, but for this I'm doing a compilation from the first day of school till February 28th, and the average enrollment for each one, if we look up here, the enrollment from 2013 to 2014 in those 6 buildings has dropped 51 students. And then we get into the data that we're really looking at. The number of actions that resulted in an incident of either out of school or in school suspension in those 6 buildings from last year to this year dropped 252 incidents. So those are incidents that resulted in an action, and that then, what it did was resulted in an increase in days of instruction by 544 days. In other words, the days of suspension dropped 544 from the year before to this year in those 6 buildings. if we break it down even further into the actions per 100 students, each one of those buildings showed a drop except one, which stayed the same. So even if there was a drop in that school's enrollment, the number of actions in that still is going down. The number of days are still going down as well. Once again, this is in no way a direct result of this person's injection into the building. It's a work of everything within there, but they are a big part of it. And that brought me to the next thing that I wanted to look at and see how effective we were being. And that was, these 6 buildings were chosen because they were the 6th highest suspension rate buildings the prior year. So I took the 6 that were in front of that and ran the numbers on those 6 to see, has there been a change throughout the district? And the answer to that is yes. The change throughout those next 6 level buildings is a 10% decrease in suspension days and in-school and out-of-school suspension days over that year. The 6 buildings where we have the student services team members, their change was 42%. So that just lends that the injection of that person and the program, the framework, is making an impact in those 6 buildings where they work. So what are they doing? We focus on really the universal tier in PBIS. We want them to have providing more things for everyone in that building over the course of these last couple months of school than they are providing sort of one-on-one and individual discipline type actions. One night in February, late January, we hosted a Krause VIP night. The student services team member arranged for tickets for the basketball game. We had food served. Each student that was selected, there were 25 students selected. They were given a lanyard that said Krause VIP as they showed up with their parents. They were given the lanyard, the tickets to the game. We came into the cafeteria, we served them dinner, and the student services team member brought in a couple of the basketball players from the varsity team before the game. They talked to the kids about making good decisions, what it takes to be a high school athlete, their plans to go on to college, those kind of things. And then one of the other things that we're doing across all the buildings that I can tell you about very easily with the help of Mr. Pendleton was the design and development of school spirit t-shirts for all of those schools that have that student services team member. Some of those individuals worked with a discipline team, or they worked with a cadre of students to develop the design on the shirt and pick the colors, and then they're going to roll those out to different schools. They're going to do it either through Spirit Week or as an incentive or some other type of program within the next couple weeks, so that everyone in that building will receive one of those shirts to boost the school spirit of that school. And that's one of those universal tier initiatives that the student services team member is working on with them. As for the school climate committee, like I said, we are developing an audit, and we are looking at different cities and different audits that are used around, Cincinnati, Baltimore, for example. And as of the last cultural competency meeting, we had a presentation of the Youth Use Survey with Carla and with Matt Devers from SEI, and the information that's coming out of that's already available, that's compiled. And it looks like, you know, why make something that we don't need to? It's already there. They've done all the work, all the data's there. And so our next meeting in March, we're going to look at how we can utilize and incorporate that climate domain in the Youth Use Survey into that audit. Our kids, do they feel that they're valued by adults? What are going to be, we're going to try to operationalize that. When you walk in a building, can you tell that by looking at the kids? When you talk and interact with them, when you interact with adults, when you see the walls and the decorations and things, does that tell you that that domain is being met? And then compare that to the data that's already there that they've gathered through that survey. So those are the next steps for the school climate audit. And lastly, the mentoring piece. We've been working for this year on mentoring, and then the opportunity came around for us to join in on the Community Connectors Grant, which was initiated by the Governor of Ohio and put out there for school districts to partner with a faith-based organization, a nonprofit organization, the business community, and bring all those pieces together with the school district to create mentoring within the schools to improve the school day for our students and create better citizens as we go on. We worked on this grant with many, many people. As you can see across the bottom of here, Jonathan Greer is the liaison with the district that we've been working at through Man Up Mentoring, also through the EMS group, which I heard mentioned earlier. Pastor Eugene Norris and Pastor David Parker have been working with us very, very closely. And then going into the business community, we have secured some business opportunities for people, or some opportunities for businesses to join us in this and fund us and get us started. The ADM board being one, SD Myers Corporation with Scott Myers is another, and we're still going to be presenting to other businesses throughout the city to assist us with this. The mentoring program itself that we've developed, that we've submitted with the grant, is a school-based mentoring program. That means that it's happening between the hours of 8 and 3:30. So the mentoring is going to happen during that school day. We work with the building principal so that it doesn't pull that student away from any sort of curriculum time. It may just be a lunch period. It may be another period that they have a library where they've gone and selected a book or done what the library's doing, and then they have time to go off with that mentor and meet with them. But the program that we've come up with, that Jonathan Greer has come through, is the I Care mentoring program. And I Care stands for creating authentic relational energy. And that's what it's about. Since it's school-based, it's one-to-one. That means that everything that happens between that mentor and that student is about the relationship. The person's not a coach, the person's not a tutor. They're simply there to provide them with another lens to the world outside. This is what can happen. This is what you can do. Whether it's bringing in career skills, whether it's bringing in just positive affirmations for that student. That's somebody that they know that each Thursday at 1 o'clock, that person's going to come in and tell them something positive and be positive with them. They may help them with a math problem. They may read to them, but it's going to be around the relationship developed between that mentor and that student, and that's what it's going to be the focus of the mentoring program. The grant application was submitted on Friday. Happy to say it was done early. That I don't think happens quite often. They kept extending the deadline, which is tomorrow, but we have had the fortunate teamwork and a great collaboration of a lot of people and a lot of different agencies on this, and we will wait and see. The other side of that is the program that we're running, we've developed it as a system, and we plan on continuing that system regardless of what comes out of the grant. It'll be a lot easier, a lot faster, and we'll be able to touch a lot more students if we have that ability to do that when the grant comes through. But if not, we're going to keep moving forward with the program that we have in place. And that is the school climate update. Questions that you may have? Yes?
Curious on the mentoring part. Curious what you might be doing different from the other mentoring programs that are struggling actually finding mentors. Do you have those mentors in place already then? If you get the grant?
Well, what the reason that it's called the Community Connectors Grant is, let's say for instance, a large corporation in Akron says, we would like you to, we're going to be a part of this. And so out of their services, they're going to offer their employees, let's say they're a 3-shift company, they're going to offer their 3rd shift employees to come, and they'll put it out to those employees, and then we'll go in and train however many of those people are interested in that company to be mentors, and then we'll link them with a school, and they can start mentoring through that. So what the grant does is it puts the school in touch with a lot of different agencies. The one corporation that we've secured, they're a business-to-business company, and so one of the services they're offering us are their connections. And so they're going to put us in touch and in line and open a lot of those webs for us to be in touch with a lot of other businesses so that we can have the opportunity to go in and speak to them. Yes?
Is the mentors going to be for young men and young ladies?
Yes. The grant is 5 through 12. We specifically started with 5th and 6th graders. That's 4,200 students basically. And our motto is one student for 1 hour for once a week for 1 academic year. And we figure if you start in 5th grade, once you develop that relationship, you're hooked in for 6 more years because you're going to be with that student until they graduate or beyond. If you're doing what you're supposed to do and that relationship works like it should, you're going to be around for a long time.
Well, I think you already answered my question. It's 1 hour a week that you shoot for. Can it be more than that?
It can. The reason we stay an hour is it's more of an hour totality. So we planning it on a day. If a person has a lunch break for an hour, we're looking at geographically linking companies with schools, so that if a person has an hour lunch break, it may take them, an hour with two people sitting together that don't really know each other is a long time. There's a lot of blank time staring at each other there. So we're looking at it really. Over time, that hour is going to develop into a very, very productive hour. But the first couple meetings may be 20, 25, 30 minutes. You bring a book and read to them, a magazine of interest, and go through it with them, and then go on the way. So it's not a forced hour together. No, we've got to stay here for 10 more minutes. But that hour gives them a time to get from their business to the school, do what they need to do, and get back.
And if your class periods are, say, 40 minutes, would that probably be the time frame then?
Yes.
For that 40 minutes on 1 o'clock on Thursdays or
Yes.
something like that? Okay.
Yes.
Can I just say out loud, a 42% decrease in out of school is a fantastic number, so I just want to say that out loud. So, thank you.
One more question.
Yes.
In doing this entire project, is there one specific thing that's working better to help the kids, to keep them in school, or is it a combination? You think it's a combination of?
I think it's the one specific thing is that it's an opportunity that wasn't there in the past. It's new. It gives the principals another option. Before, if a student were to be corrected, there were steps in between, but this offers a whole nother step with a person that's had specific directed training as to how to deal with that kid and talk to them and give them some skills maybe and get them back into the classroom. A lot of what we focus on is restorative practices, which I know you're familiar with, and getting them into that mindset then really brings them around that time.
If I could add into that too, and because Andrew is definitely not going to say it, but it's that continual training part, because Andrew goes to those buildings every other day to continue to make sure that it's not falling into something else, because it easily can. But Andrew's right, those options and just having another option, because we're so used to just having a suspension, creating another option and then keeping kids in the school is hugely dramatic. And Andrew's, I don't know if he's going to say this too, but anyone that's interested in doing the mentoring program, make sure to call us, because the limitation of that is going to be how many people can we find to give us that hour. And it's an hour. But we would also say, because we started doing it as a pilot with ourselves, you get much more of an impact than that student does, because the student that I've had has made me a better father, it's made me a better person, it's made me a better man. So if you're interested, and that's where the tie back to the business will be, we'll go to a business and businesses are going to be willing to say, here's their hour for a week to go mentor this student. And it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing.
March 16th at the First Apostolic Church is our next training at 6 o'clock. So if you'd like to come, you go through the hour and 40-minute training, and then we'll work from there and do background checks and all of that. So if anyone's interested.
Thank you very much.
All right. Our next order of business is the approval of the meeting minutes from February 23rd, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any questions about those minutes? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mrs. Sims.
Yes.
Trevor Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Mr. Bravo.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi.
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes. Superintendent's recommendations.
Madam President, I have before me for your consideration 33 personnel recommendations. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
Second. Moved and properly seconded. Any questions about personnel? Yes, Tim.
On the STEM Hub position, program manager that we're approving, just clarification on the payment on that, it appears that it's going to be grant funded for
Yes.
1 year.
Yes.
After that, does it become general funded?
No, it'll always be subject to grant funding. In the past, the hub manager was paid for out of funds from the Ohio STEM Learning Network that we had for several years to fund that position. And we're still getting some funds from the Ohio STEM Learning Network to support that, and that's that collaborative position. It was housed at the University of Akron in the past, but we're gonna house it over here just to keep that continuity going.
If we are unable to get a grant, does it just sort of dry up and the person's unemployed then? after
Yes.
that?
Any other questions? Wanted to mention a personal friend is Mary Jo Hoffman. I know she's been teaching at Resnick for a very long time. I believe she teaches kindergarten. Yeah, I thought so. Teaches kindergarten there, and I know she'll be missed. Anything else? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Sims.
Yes, abstaining from items 31 and 32.
Reverend Walker.
Yes, abstaining from item 33.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes, abstain from item 24 and 25.
Mr. Bravo.
Yes, abstaining from item 26.
26.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi.
Yes, abstaining from item 27.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes, abstaining from items 28 and 29.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, abstaining from number 30.
All right, next, Madam President, I have before me for your consideration 3 motions and 4 resolutions on the consent agenda. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval. I do want to point out that item 5 on the consent agenda has to do with Barrett School. At Bridges Academy, which is at the old Hotchkiss building, the plan is to move that program over to the 2nd floor at Barrett. So this would be the engineering work to, we have to do some remodeling of the 2nd floor at Barrett to make room for the students from Bridges. The problem with the Hotchkiss building, which I'll talk about kind of something similar in my report, we had part of a parapet wall fall at Hotchkiss last year. That building has seen better days in the past. I think that moving the program over to the Barrett site will provide some economies of scale, and then also give our students, about 85 or 86 students, a better facility to meet their needs. Yes, sir.
And then item number 6, replacement of heat exchangers at Mason and Robinson.
Yes.
and Robinson.
I'll let Mr. Flesher handle
Yeah,
that one.
we've experienced some crack welds in the heat exchanger. Heat exchanger is a part of that boiler which takes from the furnace gases and transfers that heat into the water for the hydroponic system into the building. And we've experienced some failures on those 2 items and need to have them replaced at this point in time. We've got engineering involved to try to figure out the root causes of the issue there. Mason went into service in 2007 and Robinson 2008, although I may have those reversed on the account.
Now, our insurance doesn't take care of that?
No. Warranty expires after, in those cases for that equipment, it's 2 years after initial implementation. There are other parts of some equipment that's more for 5 to 10 years, but that specific piece of it is only a 2-year warranty based on bid documents.
The other thing I'd like to point out is if you notice the fund number 034, that's part of the set-aside that we're required to maintain as part of our Ohio Facilities Construction Commission project. Those funds are set aside just for this type of thing with our new COCs. As they age, you will have some issues, and that's what those funds will be used for.
I
Just
didn't
seems really early.
expect to see,
Yeah, it's
the
really
age that
early.
quickly in a new building.
And that's one of the reasons we have engineering to try to follow up on what the issues are. again, crack welds, is it a cycling issue, is it an operational issue, is it an inherent manufacturing issue? At this point in time, too early to tell what the actual is, and so they'll go through a root cause analysis for us and try to figure it out. We've had, actually, early in the game, there were one or two of those same manufacturer boilers that the heat exchangers did fail, but they were replaced under warranty. And these are out in every, well, before these latest sets of them were geothermal, that they were a common setup for all our buildings, but it only seems to occur in a select few, and that's the other head scratcher at the work.
Is this steam or hot water?
Hot water.
Is it possible that, or is there any such thing as extended warranty, like when the warranties, before it goes out, getting an extended warranty?
We can put something in the bid specs for something like that, but in general, you're going to pay for the extended warranty for things like that, and especially on an equipment like that. The longer it goes out, the more likely the manufacturer is going to cover themselves. And usually what they cover only is the part itself, not the installation. So we have, in select cases, extended warranty tags, for example, high for compressors for the chiller units and those types of things. They have extended warranty on them based on what we do. So. But it's an unusual piece of equipment to go this quickly.
And based on what you said, Paul, do you find that, is this a surprise to you, or is this common occurrence for this type of equipment?
Surprise is probably not. You sort of expect it, but it's unusual, and I wouldn't expect it to happen. That's, from that standpoint. So that's why we want to find out, is it something inherent with the manufacturer, or is it something we're doing operationally, or the way maybe something happened within the operation that changed that caused this to occur. And so, yes, it is unusual, and would expect a little bit longer. Usually you're looking for that type of equipment at least 10 to 15 years on it. And like I said, we've got probably 20 other buildings out there with a similar type of equipment, which we haven't had an issue with for whatever reason.
So we've looked at those, we don't see any stress on that, do you? So we've looked at those others.
Well, that would be part of what we'll be looking at, yeah. And you know when they fail, because we have, obviously, you can't keep the unit running.
And they come from the same manufacturer, right?
For the most part, yes. Airco is the manufacturer. Yeah.
Yes.
Back to Barrett, just a quick question. I was looking at the budget on that being $250,000, looking to approve 14% of that for engineering. Is that a fair cost? I mean, when I was looking, they're already telling us we're under budget, and so we're not going to put wall, or their suggestions were. But, is that a, seems like a large percentage, but obviously it's a smaller project.
As smaller the job, the percentage will, so you end up saying, one thing I will point out that this amount also would cover the amount that we would use the engineer for, not only for help us in the bid documents, but also in follow-up during construction. So
That's a close out, another 4%.
Correct. But a smaller job, percentage of it, because they.
And the asbestos, which is unknown and not part of this, do we have any feel for?
How much that would be? Not at this point, but we're.
Magical question, I know. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Did I miss anybody? Okay. Hearing none, roll call, please. Oh, did we get a motion? Oh, we didn't get a motion? Oh, sorry. Dozed off there. All right, any other questions or concerns? Oh, yes, Reverend Moore.
Well, I just want to, and maybe this could come up a little later, but since we were talking about facilities and since we made the national news,
report on that.
as it relates to Ellen, and since you talked about asbestos, either the superintendent or Mr. Fletcher, so that the board and general public can
It's in
be
his report.
assured.
It's in his report.
It's in your report?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
All right, so we're okay till that comes up?
We're
Okay.
okay.
Roll
If you
call.
want us to go ahead.
I'll hear it in the superintendent's additional report.
Reverend
All right.
Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Mr. Bravo.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi.
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mrs. Sims.
Yes.
And finally, Madam President, I have before me for your consideration 17 business affairs recommendations. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
Second.
These are shy today. It's really unusual. Moved and properly seconded. Any questions about business affairs? Yes, Tim?
I just want to make sure I'm reading right. As far as the E-rate reimbursements on what we're approving here, it's 85% yes on what we might get back or what we're
Yeah,
approving.
and it is a very complicated formula. There is a different 85% formula for priority or Cat 1 services, which is your actual service such as telephone services and network services, and a different formula for that 85% for the Category 2. So it is up to 85%. One is done by building, which is your Cat 1. The other one is done by district-wide, and that is Cat 2. Okay?
Wouldn't be school funding unless it was.
Unless it was, and actually, this is federal funding, and it's more complicated than school funding.
Deb, we're grateful we have you and Ryan to help us keep that all straight. That is- Any other questions about business affairs? Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Mr. Bravo.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi.
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mrs. Sims.
Yes.
Reverend Walker.
Yes.
Okay, so items to report on. Ellett High School, as Reverend Walker pointed out, had some serious roof issues over this severely cold weather. We've had a lot of ice buildup on the roof and of course separated some seams and had water infiltrate the building. Hard plaster at Ellett, which those acoustical tiles are glued to, has a small amount of asbestos in it. And so as a precaution, you know, we have a group of maintenance folks in our district who have asbestos training from Ohio Department of Health. Went in, took the proper precautions to pick up the tiles and handle any of the plaster that may have come down. I know that work was done after school. I think it was at the same time as maybe a basketball game or some athletic event. Some students saw it, took pictures and posted it on Facebook or what have you. Rob Boxler reported, this both to Akron Regional Air Quality Management District, also the Ohio Department of Health and Ohio EPA in terms of how we handled it. Over the weekend, we had maintenance staff on the roof, clearing roof drains and making some patches on damaged areas. So right now, we're monitoring the building. The bigger concern really is about the water coming in, damaging equipment and materials. Not too concerned about the plaster or the tiles coming down unless a whole ceiling, would fall. But they're just taking the precautions, which they're trained to do, to make sure they're keeping people away and out of the rooms and, cleaning things up, putting it away for proper disposal. We also had similar situation on one area, the BOE, the Business and Education Lab at Garfield. We had folks out there, I believe today, doing the same thing, just with the cold weather. As the heat comes up through the building, it'll melt that lowest layer of snow and then it impacts and forms big, thick sheets of ice. And also at Higher, which is a sloped roof, we had some ice dams cause some water to infiltrate into the building. That's a newer building, but that will happen with some of the sloped buildings. So, we're keeping abreast of it and just making sure that we have folks monitoring the building so that, we can have everything under control. We're just glad that Ellett is on the schedule for a replacement and then hopefully won't have to worry about that in a couple of years. Any questions about that? The other item is last week, the Ohio 8 had a meeting with the Speaker of the House and some of the House leadership about the budget. So we just wanted to let them know that, our concerns about, there was concerns about testing and then what the formula is really going to look like and how do they foresee changes to it. And also on transportation, because that is a big challenge for many of the districts like us where one of the issues is people say, well, when there's a questionable call on weather, just call a delay. Well, we triple tier our buses. If I call a delay, I could have elementary kids arriving as late as noon to turn around at 2:30 and then have to go home. So there were, because of the demands on transportation with not just our students, but also charter and parochial and non-publics. But they listened, and I think there might be some areas where we have some agreement on issues. So we'll continue our outreach, on the House side, and I believe Ohio 8 will have some meetings on the Senate side as well with Senator Lehner. But just trying to keep ourselves apprised of where the budget process is. And the last thing I want to report on is recently was in Washington, D.C. with Akron Metropolitan Housing Authority, and we were presenting our Reach Opportunity Center partnership with AMHA, SCI, and others with the Council for Large Public Housing Agencies, the largest agencies in the country, are really looking at collaborating with educational organizations like our public schools to make sure that we're doing all we can for their residents, which in many of our urban centers, there are large numbers of families that live in public housing, whether it's a housing project or scattered housing, or they receive rent supports. And so that is a new area, I think, that across the country people are really looking at. We saw examples from Tacoma, Washington, Seattle, Washington, and actually New Haven, Connecticut, as well as Akron, in terms of their partnerships with public housing agencies for the benefit of our kids. And that's it for my report.
Any questions? All right. I am circling the drain a little bit here, so I'm going to skip a president's report to spare you all listening to my craggy voice. Ryan, do you have anything to share?
No.
All right. Committee reports this evening. Does anyone have anything? Yes, Reverend Walker.
We do have a report from Instructional Policy Subcommittee. Tonight, our Instructional Policy and Student Achievement Subcommittee is pleased to bring to the board the first step in a potential adoption of new English language arts materials for grades 6 through 12. If you go down the hallway on the left, you'll see a large demonstration of various books. These books will be both in print and online, so that our students can access them both ways. So as it says out in the hallway, for your review over the past few weeks, our materials from Houghton Mifflin Harcourt called Collections. Please take a chance to review the materials in preparation for a recommendation from our superintendent at our March 30th meeting to adopt the materials. We want to publicly thank the 29 teachers and instructional coaches who served on the secondary adoption team during the 2013-14 school year. The teams worked diligently to review a wide array of products from across the country. The members were knowledgeable and well-versed in Ohio's new learning standards through the training they received from the Institute for Learning. The teachers prioritized publishers that demonstrated rigorous instructional practices similar to that of the IFL units. The teachers' team selected their top 3 choices and invited those publishers to conduct a 2-hour presentation for their teams. At the end, the team selected Collections as their first choice. Howard Lawson's technology department then did an exhaustive review of Collections to make certain it was compatible with our district's infrastructure. After their successful review, Collections was deemed compatible and brought forth to the superintendent. Collections is recommended to the board today because the curriculum met the expectations of Ohio's new learning standards for English language arts. and transcends the traditional way of learning with the state-of-the-art features that resonate with today's students in a blended, and the blended means a digital and print learning approach. The curriculum was designed to help students analyze complex texts, extract evidence, reason critically, communicate thoughtfully, the must-have skills for college and career readiness. If the board members, if we have questions about any of the materials, please reach out to Ellen McWilliams and Ton Dang Nguyen, who is our learning specialist for language arts. And that's our report.
Thank you very much for that. Any other committee
I just have a
reports?
question of Dr. Water. How do teachers get picked to do this? I mean, would have no clue in picking up textbooks. I mean, if it's an English book, are you rounding up English teachers and do they volunteer? I mean, how's it?
Our assistant superintendent will
It's a
answer.
meeting about the mentors and the review of books on what stage. No.
Yeah, we actually, it's an open volunteer process. So we put out a call to any English language arts teachers in the district. And anyone who wants to volunteer is able to come in. So we, certainly we encourage folks who are department chairs, especially in the high schools and middle schools, but we're really open to anyone to come in because we want it to be a collaborative process with the folks that are most important, which are the English language arts teachers themselves.
And if we were looking at math books, we'd do the same collection and send out the
Right.
math. I mean, is there incentive that they would like to work with the books? I mean, do they
Sure, yeah,
pay for
we
that
never
extra
have a
work, or-
hard time finding teachers to come in because it's going to be what they're using. So they have a huge investment in wanting to review the materials and see what's out there.
Anything else? All right.
Yeah, that's a good process, but here's a question. Have we ever considered using students in that process, just one or two?
Yeah, we do at times try out the materials. We let the teachers come and take them and bring them, they can bring them back and try out units to see how the students like it and how, yeah, so they're definitely included in the process as teachers review it over the year that it takes.
All right. Any unfinished business? I know the superintendent has some new business to share as well.
Yeah, first I'll talk about the facility update. I just wanted to remind board members that, our work with Case Elementary School will necessitate them going into 400 West Market, and we would definitely want to get them into 400 West Market at the end of this school year, so their move would actually take place over the summer. And then we could get started with, the building demolition to make sure we don't lose any time. We thought about, the potential for a mid-year move, but with our, since I was beaten earlier today by Miss Kelly, I decided in fear of my life, I better make sure I'm thinking of the kids and everything that they have to do, but it would be less problematic from an academic standpoint to get them moved at the end of a school year, not in the middle of a school year. There will be some transportation costs, and as we work with the treasurer and our staff, on looking at the budget, we'll get better estimates on what that is going to be. But we're going to be faced with that regardless of whether we start it now or wait, and for the duration. I think this will help us keep our timelines in place in terms of once the designs are ready and getting that moved. And we do have a cross-functional team that'll work on the move, such as the packing, the boxes, the labels, working through staffing, so we'll know where teachers are going to be at in the new building. And that'll have 400 West Market filled. Half of it's empty now because we only have Harris there. But I just wanted to give you a heads up on that in case you hear anything. And if you do, just let me know.
And they will be there for at least 2.5 years.
We could be looking at, I always have to remind myself what year I'm in right now. But it would be there for 2 years.
2 years. The next item I want to talk about, this is really a pilot program on we've been talking about digital learning and doing some online things and trying to compete for some of our students that are doing online learning. So we decided to put out a pilot program basically through June, targeting both elementary and secondary students. On the elementary side, we are looking at working with the Cuyahoga County ESC. They have a program through Lincoln Interactive that can target elementary students. And then for secondary students, looking at virtual community school, which has done work in Reynoldsburg, which has always been touted as a success. These would, basically on the pilot, we're targeting kids who do not currently attend Akron Public Schools, so they may be homeschooled or attend another online school, or students that we know are ready to exit Akron Public Schools and go to an online school in an effort to keep them. The way the program works is that these students, their state share of dollars follows them. And so pretty much with both elementary and secondary, the provider will do the online portion. They will provide the computer. It's a turnkey operation, and we split the state cost. So they will basically get about half. In some cases with the high school, it may be just a little more than half, but it really boils down to about a 50-50 split on the state share of funding. So we'll get some additional revenue in and basically have it as a turnkey operation. We've sat down with Pat Shipe and notified her about this. You know, long term, of course, their issue is if this is successful, will we use APS teachers as the instructor of record? Those are some things we'll look at after the pilot. That's why it's limited in time, so we can get some information, some data points, and do the analysis to see if this will work. For purposes of the pilot, the students will still be recorded on their home school. So if they were an online student from another online school and they live in Akron, and we'll go with their neighborhood school based on their home address. So that, you know, the students' grades and everything will stick with the home school. As we go through this further, you know, we may want to look at, if it's successful, whether we will continue that option, which there are some pluses to, or, you know, establish an actual digital school with its own IRN. But right now, these kids will be enrolled in an Akron public school, but all of their learning will happen online, and we'll have we will have one of our staff members follow up just to make sure that things are going according to plan, and keeping in contact with both of the providers to make sure things are running smoothly.
Can you talk about the track record of the providers that you're engaging with?
Yes, we know that the Cuyahoga County ESC, they're using Lincoln Interactive, which is a national provider of online content. I know Summit County at one point had a pilot several years ago. I do know that through the ESC in Cuyahoga County, they have been working with a variety of schools in Northeast Ohio, like Shaker Heights schools and several others, and have been successful in running their program. And then we know that Virtual Community School has been successful, and actually they were really excited to work with us in partnership. They've been working with Reynoldsburg schools on their digital expansion piece, and they've been getting a lot of accolades. You know, our thing is, I'm real cautious about, you know, going out on that, but we don't have the capacity right now, I think, internally to actually start this thing from scratch. Found some providers who've done this and who appear to have done a good job. Our goal is to monitor the work and, see where it goes, and it may open up some avenues for us to reach kids that really like that way of approaching their education. But we want to make sure that it's quality. The thing that I feel we bring to the table is the opportunity, number one, when you graduate, to get an Akron Public School diploma. And then some of those value-added pieces, and I don't think anyone can compete with us on many of the experiences that our students have available to them, you know, in terms of extracurricular activities that I'm not sure other digital schools could really offer. So those are some of the things questions that we want to ask during the pilot, and then come back and report to the board on what the successes were, you know, what the minuses were, the failures, and then go from there.
And I see, sorry,
Go ahead, finish.
I see some,
Maybe you'll ask me a
obviously,
question
some
for me.
additional opportunities that we've talked about before, which are the days of instructions that students lose when they're suspended or expelled, or, so I see some opportunities there, obviously, and like I said, we've talked about them before. What, now we're calling it a pilot though, but the kids that would enroll in this pilot program that would run March through June, I mean, I don't necessarily expect that you would turn around and disenroll them or unenroll them. Sorry. Sorry. Educators got it right. So I don't expect that we would turn around and unenroll them come fall. So is there a plan for these students, or what if we decide the pilot won't work? Are we gonna, have we talked about that yet?
Yeah, the issue is these students have many other options available to them, and I mean that is the the reality of this situation. We're in a competitive world, and this is one group of students. It is a very large and continues to grow. So the issue here is not to try and trick them or mislead them and say, oh, if this doesn't work, come and act. No, if this doesn't work, find another online provider. I think it's going to be successful because we picked two providers that are flexible enough and understand, our issues, that this is not something that, we're taking lightly. We've looked at some quality providers and have done some due diligence on them, and I really do think it'll work long term. And you're right, this is something, as we move through this, if it's successful, that we could use in terms of programs that might be in lieu of expulsion, and look at some of our discipline issues where it might be impossible for some kids to actually be at school for a certain period of time, but allow them, similar to what we did with during the Ebola crisis for some of the students who had to do some work at home through the computer. This would just have a much more seamless, I think it will be a seamless operation between us and the providers.
I can't say that I'm super clear, but one of the statement you said, relatively successful. What makes them successful? Like what's the measurement? What do we?
Well, it's for instance, both of them offer. They will provide the equipment, which is important to us. We don't want to have to track equipment. That's the provider who's doing that. But in both cases, they've been successful in terms of the achievement of the students who have been in the programs. When you look at Reynoldsburg, I mean, it's been touted as a statewide model, and they've been using virtual community school for their, program. So I think there are some students that, for instance, homeschool students, they may want to take advantage of that. Students who may attend other digital academies that may not be happy with the service they're providing. I think a combination of the right online provider and our staff and customer service and some of the extras that we bring, we have a lot of experience working with students from all different levels. And I think when you combine the two, I think that's a recipe for success.
Dave, you've been very patient.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so I understand that. I understand if it's an online school, you're basically at home with a computer, working at a certain time of day each day, and you really don't have any contact. I mean, our students would be enrolled still with Akron Public, and we will have somebody kind of as a checkup to make sure that, student A is actually following through on 6th grade English, 6th grade math, and there's some accountability that we have for the student because they're ours, I guess.
Exactly. Both providers have a person who actually does the home visit and the online monitoring to make sure that the student is doing what they need to do. At the OSBA conference, I snuck into one of the online schools and looked at some of the challenges that they were having where, if you don't have that person who goes and makes a home visit to check on the kids and make sure they're doing it, it isn't going to be, successful. Actually, both of these providers are fairly stringent, in terms of the follow-up with the students and their families. For instance, the one through the ESC in Cuyahoga County, they actually have the sit down with the parents and the student, go through a series of questions to make sure that, this is the right fit for that student. That's something I felt was, really important to make sure that we're matching up students who are going to be successful with that, and we're working with their families to make sure they understand the responsibilities that they have, for their kid.
If we look at this pilot and find out that it might be good for our students here, during that pilot period, are we going to look at maybe try to make this a little more unique type of online versus some of the others, so it would attract these students back and so that they will get better instruction via our online schooling than others?
Right. One model that we're going to be looking at, further down the road based on the evaluation of this is actually in some schools across the country, they'll actually have the online center or lab in the school. So students come at different hours and there's a proctor there to help them access, information. But there's still a connection with the school, but the majority of their work is just done through the online portal. We feel that there may be students who will gravitate towards that type of service delivery versus the more in-class piece. So, again, there are going to be a lot of questions, and the plan is to go through this and then come back and tell you about our experience and explore with you whether we go forward or not, and look at, some of the pluses and the minuses of the whole thing, and give you all options.
So I'd like to see this, if we do this, I think we could capture some others,
Yes.
but I'd like to see it be a little more unique than a lot of the others, because if it's more
Right.
unique, then they're gonna come here and take on our online program.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the things I'd like to see.
I'm just curious, what's our have we figured out what our criteria is gonna be in June when we evaluate it? Is it just gonna be strictly on the children's, what their trajectory is? I mean, it seems like such a short window.
Right.
Are we gonna have some kind of exit survey with parents as well?
Yes,
Things of that
we'll
nature?
be working with both. Like I said, both of these are experienced provider. They're not new entrants to the field.
Right.
So they will help us, inform some of the data points that we'll need to look at. And again, with our own internal people, we'll be looking at that, those data points as well.
You said these are not, the teachers of record will be the teachers from the service provider?
Yes.
So is there opportunities, if it does work, if the program does work, then for almost extended year options over the summer, or credit recovery type options?
It could be all of the above. That's the nice thing about this. And, if we move forward with it, I think the option that we discussed with Pat Chipe is having our own APS teachers being the teacher of record and really supporting it.
And maybe offering some of the classes that we have in the
Yes,
past?
some of the nice thing about this, looking at the bigger picture, is you can offer many more electives for students than what we offer currently.
I know that was like a nice way of saying, just wait and see, kind of, but all of those seem like they're different tiers, like lieu of suspension, credit recovery, those all seem like different things. This pilot in particular, are we targeting those students who are no longer here?
Yes, students who haven't attended APS or who are no longer attending APS, who are either homeschooled or attending another online school.
So, all right, so under grade 9 through 12, it says enrollment is based upon recommendation from the school principal and student services.
We'll have, for instance, we may have some students that we've worked with or we've touched who have transitioned, off to a digital school. We're contacting those kids who don't attend, and so we might be able to have those students come back and try this.
So do we have a number we're looking at?
We've targeted 3.
I think you had 50 elementary and 40
Yes.
secondary.
So we're looking at a total of 90
About
students.
90 students, right.
What's our hope?
As a whole.
What's our current, do we know what the current number of students outside of APS attending online or homeschool?
The homeschool is over 300.
150 and 150 K-5. That's where we did that. There's 300 total homes that we contact with the flyers for the dates to stop by.
And those are what grades?
K-5.
So what about the high school students?
It's going to be pretty much on a case-by-case basis, based on the relationship with the students that we have been in contact with. It's going to be case-by-case on the high school, based on the principal, the current student status, and their ability to be successful.
Good. All right. Next.
Any other questions?
I didn't
Just kind
understand
of a
that.
speculative one.
Exactly.
Assume this goes well. Is there any thought given to, since sometimes we're limited in electives we can give our kids, to doing some online schooling electives at home in addition to being enrolled and going to and attending Akron Public School? Sort of like a online colleges are set up right now.
Well, you know, I'm hesitant to speak on that because every time I talk about the future, like year-round school, I get in trouble and people think that's what we're going to have, or my athletic council. But yeah, you know, I know some friends of my son's when he was at Firestone, kids who were, because of the academic program, they couldn't have lunch. You know, and their schedule, because of all the activities, they're doing some wonderful things, but they have a hard time fitting in everything. And so it's not that, you know, as I look forward, it may offer an option for kids not to go totally digital, but maybe they want to take, you know, some unique course that might be offered, and they can do that and just take the one course, but have the rest of their activities in school. So again, you know, in education, we've been challenged, how do we kind of integrate and go to this whole, you know, digital era? And it does, the tools offer the flexibility that I think many of our students, and this is not something that's for low-performing students, it's for all students. So whether you're high-performing or you have some challenges, I think through the, you know, the digital portal, you can meet more students' needs. And we know that there is a fairly large audience out there who are already doing this, and some are being successful and some aren't. I want to make sure that students, whether they're traditional bricks and sticks building students or whether they're a digital student, they get the high quality curriculum that Akron Public Schools provides, whether it's online content or in person.
Okay, before I leave this one. Because, I mean, the fact of the matter is, what you measuring initially is gonna have impact on what you go, where we go from here. So I guess my question again, I'm sorry, Mr. Howard, I'm sure you explained it, but it's just, how are we identifying the high school students?
We
K-5.
currently are going to work with high school students that are in our schools right now,
So they're in our schools.
that we believe may not make it to June, okay? Or that have some unique situation where online would enhance their learning between now and June. We didn't go out, nor are we planning to go out right now with our high school kids and try and solicit our online APS students that have left us. We're trying twofold. We're trying to retain the people, and we're looking at a retaining model that's in our secondary schools. And we're trying to reattract, and that reattract model is in our elementary schools. So our reattract is elementary, those that are currently doing homeschooling or online in elementary that have never been with us, and retaining to see what we can learn there at our secondary. So from those pools, we'll have the exit surveys, we will have the parent information surveys, we'll be able to ascertain the technology needs that we may encounter, a whole variety of things that we'll learn as a result of this.
One last question.
Okay.
I think it's for Howard too. With the kids who are high school, I know we want to keep those kids maybe performing fairly low, but we want to keep them in school. I think that's good. Now I'm thinking about those kids who may have dropped out. We have a list of maybe our APS students who may have dropped out, and possibly, I know some of them probably transient, but maybe some phone numbers or address to try to find out what they're doing to probably bring them back into APS.
And that's exactly why it's in collaboration with the principals and student services.
Okay.
So that we can really hit the people that we believe are going to be successful, and that will give us a good gauge of the selection criteria we may want to implement in the future.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm excited.
We are too, I think, because I think that's the direction that we knew we'd be going into. I'm just trying to make it make enough sense to me to say, are we measuring the right things? For a struggling student that is struggling, we're trying to keep in, it's not really the right measurement to me compared to a student we're trying to return them back to the school. As those students, like two different dynamics. And so when you end up with all the data, I don't think consistently we're talking about the same thing. So that was my concern, but maybe if you can buy me lunch, I can sit a little longer and talk instead of, because, I mean, I think we all talked about the various things we can use this tool for. That's very, very important. But I thought we had a singular thought process around this pilot. It seems like the time frame is too short to have multi things going on. That's why I guess I'm rather surprised about the approach for high school versus that of K through 5. That's all. You don't have to answer no more questions. I'm just saying it just didn't seem to be the same cup of milk. I mean, it just seemed like it was different.
And it really, in some respects, it shouldn't be. I was with a parent today talking about their child who has some struggles, and I was sitting there thinking that, I'm going to be talking about this. I wonder if that, particular student, in an effort to prevent that student from becoming a dropout, can this work? And for some, it may, because there are some challenges with some of our students of just going to the school building and interacting with other people, whether it's our staff or other students. And so and they are, a little bit, the two elementary and secondary are a little bit different. And again, it's only a pilot to try and, address some of your concerns or questions that you may have as we move forward.
With all due respect, I really want to, because I really want to help, because I really want to say it. But the very thing that you're talking about, students that have some struggles, at home there can be a lot more distractions. And so that's why I'm wondering, are we measuring the right thing? So if we're recruiting high school students the same way we're doing the K through 5, it seems like we're measuring the same thing. And you would be able to hear even from those students.
I got it. See, I don't know. I don't agree with that premise, because the elementary situation is a little bit different than a secondary situation, just in terms of the kids. I think at elementary, just looking at students who are homeschooled or haven't been in here, we have a lot of, for elementary kids, I just feel we have a lot of interventions and support systems in place to help them be successful. At the high school, because of all the other activities that kids could get in, and at elementary they are, mind you, kind of a captive audience with, with parents, versus maybe a secondary where we do run into a lot of issues. So I think, doing that dual track approach, for the pilot purposes is fine. What we'll have to do is then bring you all back the information, so then you can help us make an informed decision on, okay, here is our experience at elementary, here's the experience with the secondary, what have we learned, and then how can we move forward so that it's successful for the, for the particular student.
Just one more small, quick question. If you identify a student that might benefit from this, but internet connectivity is an issue, does this provider deal with that as well?
Similar to what we learned when we were involved with the Digital Academy, there is technology to be able to allow students to actually have that built into the, into the computer. So, right, those are some things, that are really important. I was just, it's funny how when you're in a meeting and you're coming out, I was in a meeting at the mayor's office last week, I'm coming out and someone was walking in the water department and asked me that very question, believe it or not, about, internet access. And I said, yeah, that was a issue because we've had the one community thing in here that didn't seem to go anywhere. And so we're talking about, the potential for having centers in our schools that people can go to when they need that internet access when they're doing this online learning. But that, again, that's something that we'll need to look at, into the future. And really make sure that access is there for the kids who need it. And also some support, because I don't, for many of our kids, even though they might have this digital program, I think sometimes a success or failure is dependent upon what other supports have you put in place. And to be able to have a place where they can go where there's some resources in terms of people, equipment, and access, I think are important.
Good questions, everybody. Right.
They are.
And do you have more of the facilities?
No, it was
No.
just about
Okay.
the issue with the case. And at
Okay.
a future meeting, I believe at the next one, we'll probably have contracts or something for a board to consider.
Okay. All right, very good. Now, pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G3, I need a motion to go into executive session, where's G3? To consult with legal counsel.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Bravo? Yes. Mr. Lombardi? Yes. Mrs. Beasley?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Sims? Yes. Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.